Today we're reviewing sections 2.5 to 3.3, and all of these sections cover solving equations. So ultimately what we're trying to do is solve for the variable, get the variable by itself on one side of the equation. It starts very simple with our one-step equations. There's just one step, add, subtract, multiply, divide, that we have to take to get that variable by itself and to solve. Go ahead and do that for both of these first two problems. First things first, what do I do to both sides? Divide by -6. X equals -8. -8. All right, now on the second side, g over 4 equals 10. What do I do to both sides? 4 over 1. Multiply by 4. And g equals 40. Very good. All right, who got them both? All right, so the first 4 sections on your test, guys, it's just like that. You know, you might have a negative in there. Just pay attention to your signs. All right, then you have a section where, okay, now we're stepping it up another level, and we have another step involved, but we're still trying to isolate that variable. So go ahead and try to solve these equations. What do I do first now? What do I do first? Yep, I'm going to add 4 to both sides. All right, and so I get 8a equals 16. All right, then what do? Divide both sides by 8, and a equals 2. All right, now in the second one, I need to add 10 first. This one looks a little different because it's a fraction, but I still treat it the same way with inverse operations. But I've got this negative out in front of my fraction, so where is it attached? Is it attached to my variable or to my number? To my number. That's important. We can't have a negative variable in our answer. Okay, so it's attached to the number. All right, so what would I multiply both sides by? -5. We have to make sure we take that negative with us. Did you remember to do that? Multiply both sides by -5 over 1. So -5, and b equals -75. All right, who got both of those right? Anybody get both right? Okay, anybody maybe just missed the negative on 75? All right, so that's a pretty common mistake that we could see. All right, so now we're going to take it another step further. You have 3 sections of these on your homework or on your test tomorrow, and of course the last section is the hardest because now we have to do distributor property, combine like terms, move the variable. There's all kinds of things here that we have to, you know, kind of figure out before we can do our inverse operations. And you'll have 4 questions like this on your test tomorrow. -2 times x is what? -2x. -2x. -2 times 2. -4. You see how we distributed? -2 times x, -2 times 2. We have to pay attention to our signs. Plus 8 equals 20. All right? Well, before I start moving anything, I need to look. Can I simplify anything on this side of the equation first before I move anything? Paris, can I simplify anything over here? What can I simplify? Okay, so what's -4 plus 8? What's -4 plus 8? 4. So now I can do -2x plus 4 equals 20. How many people got that? Did y'all see to combine those? All right, now what do I do to both sides? Subtract 4 from both sides. -2x equals 16. Divide both sides by -2. And guys, you see, it's kind of like a downhill, you know, race at this point to get to the x by itself. All right, it's just step by step. And those steps don't change. All right, we've got to get that variable by itself. On the second one, 6x plus 15 equals -3x plus 36. All right, so now what you see that's different here is you have a variable on each side of the equal sign. You can't have that. You can only have the variable on one side. So are you going to move negative 3x over here, or are you going to move 6x over to the right side? Why do you move negative 3x? Because it's the lowest value. So you add 3x to cancel this. You're trying to move it to the other side. Add 3x here. Now what do you have for your equation? Equals 36. And now, guys, it's a two-step equation. All right, have you solved this? What would you do next, Donald? What would you do next? You don't know. Come on, guys, what would you do next? You just solve it like a two-step equation. Subtract 15 from both sides. All right, and I still have students who are trying to not show their signs here where you're subtracting, not show an equal sign. That's a problem. All right, so you're going to get confused. I had students yesterday. They had the right number underneath, but they didn't write a sign, and then they ended up adding when they were supposed to subtract. You need to write every step. 9x equals 21. Now, on the quiz yesterday, I had people get to this point and say, well, I can't divide, so this is no solution. There is a solution. There absolutely is a solution. My variable didn't cancel out, but my solution, is it going to be a whole number?
No.
Is that okay? Absolutely. I can have a decimal in my answer. It's 2.3 repeating. So just because you have a decimal in your answer does not mean it's no solution. All right? It's only no solution if the variables cancel. All right? Which they did not. So that's probably the most difficult section as far as solving equations because there's multiple steps to it. But again, we've practiced this. You have your quiz to look at for your review. You have this review. All right, so hopefully you can make all the steps fall into place and solve these correctly on your test tomorrow. All right, now we have translating verbal sentences. All right, I need you to write an equation that's represented by this sentence and then solve it. All right, so go ahead and write your equations. All right, so since it's less than, it's 2n minus 10 equals 38. Who got that? 2n minus 10 equals 38. All right, who messed up the order? Did y'all mess up the order? Because remember, if this was 10 minus the product or 10 subtracted by or any other subtraction keyword, it would be 10 minus 2n. But because it's less than, I have to reverse the order. All right, so now I add 10 to both sides, divide, and I get 24. I get 24. All right, are y'all done with the second one? Okay, I want you to take another look at the second part of that equation. Do you need to change the order?
No.
Did you get it right? If you got the first one wrong, there's a chance you did the second one wrong too. All right, you might need to correct something. 5 plus 5 times a number equals 10 times a number minus 5 because it's 5 less than. Okay, so now I subtract 5n from both sides and I move it to the right. So what am I going to do with negative 5?
Subtract it.
I'm going to add it to the other side, right? Okay, so that cancels. 10 equals 5n and equals 2. And equals 2. All right, so now we need to go over the square. You have one of these on your test tomorrow where you have to find the perimeter of a square. What do we know about the sides of a square? They are all equal. So if they're equal, so let's say one side of a square is 5. What are the other sides? 5. So since they are equal to each other, I can take my side values and set them equal to each other in an equation, because that's what we just said, right? They're equal, so 4x minus 13 equals 2x plus 5. And now I've just set up a multi-step equation. I need to solve for x. See what we did there? Set the sides equal to each other. Now solve for x. What do I do first? Bryce, what do I do first? Subtract 2x to the other side. 2x minus 13 equals 5. What would I do now, LJ?
I'll add 13.
Add 13 to both sides. 2x equals 18. Brooke, what do I do now? Divide both sides by 2. X equals 9. So now, what do I do with x equals 9? It's not my perimeter.
Place the x for 9.
So I take my x value. I want you to try to remember, what do I do now with my x value? Don't say it. Just go ahead and do it on your paper. If you're confused, just hang out just for a sec and we'll talk about it. So you can use your x value and plug it back in to either side length. It doesn't matter. To figure out what is the actual side length of this square. So plug it in. What's 4 times 9 minus 13? It's 23. So instead of having an expression, now I have a true value. But a good way to check it is make the substitution over on the other side. They should be the same. What's 2 times 9 plus 5? 23 again. So I know that 23 is my side length. So now, what can I do to find the perimeter? Multiply it by 4. Very good. Perimeter equals 4 times the side length. Perimeter equals 4 times 23. And perimeter equals 92 units. All right? So we set the sides equal to each other, solve for x, plug it in, and then plug that value, once I find the side value, plug it into our perimeter formula and solve. All right? And that's how we would find the perimeter of a square. So the last thing you're going to have on your test tomorrow is you have a review section. These questions will be 2 points each. They'll be worth 2 points each. There will be 5 questions. So notice that I did include 5 questions here on the review slide. That's because these 5 questions are very similar to the types of review questions that you will see on your test tomorrow. So what I want you to do is go ahead and try to work through these 5 questions on your own. See what you remember, and then we'll do a little refresher and try to kind of fill in some of the missing pieces. What property is also known as the mirror property? Identity. So the first question on this review section tomorrow may not be this one, but this is a hint as to what type of problem is there. So it could be any one of the 4. What property is opposites? Inverse. What property is grouping? Associative. What property is order? Commutative. And then, of course, mirror. All right, so know your key words. What is the additive inverse of negative 18? Positive 18. It's the opposite sign. So on your test tomorrow, I'm either going to ask for the additive inverse or the multiplicative inverse. So let's cover both. What is the multiplicative inverse of negative 18? Nope.
No. 9. 8 over 1.
Negative 1 over 18. I flip it, I do the reciprocal, and so since it's negative 18 over 1, the inverse would be negative 1 over 18. All right, so one of those 2 would be on your test tomorrow. The third one, did y'all simplify this?
Yes. No. I got you.
So negative 15, what would you put next to negative 15? Plus 15. Minus 2x, plus 2x, plus 8, plus 2. And when you do it that way, goodness, it's pretty easy, right? 10. 10. All right, write the product as a power.
Y over 6.
Not y over 6.
Y to the 6th power.
Y to the 6th power. Ooh, and this last one, what are those bars on the sides of the x?
It's absolute value.
It is absolute value. What is the absolute value of a number?
7.
Just tell me, what is it? Nope, not the opposite. It's how far it is from 0. All right, very good. So it's the number without a sign. What's the absolute value of negative 5? 5. What's the absolute value of 5? 5. It's just 5. It doesn't matter what side of 0 it's on. Absolute value is just the number without the sign. So we make our substitution. The negative absolute value, all right, so I'm going to write it off to the side. The negative absolute value of negative 2 plus 3. One thing I want to point out, this is not a double negative.
It's just 2.
Okay? You have to take the absolute value first. What is the absolute value of negative 2?
2.
And then since there's a negative out in front, it's going to be negative 2. No. Plus 3 equals 1. Did anybody get 1? Okay, a couple people. All right, so remember, now, it was negative because there's a negative out front. If there was no negative out front, it would just be 2 plus 3, and then it would be 5. All right, so just remember those absolute value rules that we learned back in chapter 1. You might want to review that. All right, like I said, these are going to be 2 points apiece. Very, very good idea of what will be in your review section. And if you understand that, that should be everything you need to know for your test tomorrow.